then move them to a contractor?
So thank you for that question, Council Member. Currently, we don't have any initiatives underway to provide live on-scene interpreters. We do use the state's language line contract with, used to be AT&T, but I think it's a different company now. Anyway, Language Line, which provides professional certified interpreters for many, many languages. And we do have several employees who are bilingual. We have one who speaks Hmong and a couple that speak Spanish. The issue is to make that available to callers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We don't want to have just a chance that the person that needs that language calls when that employee is there. So those are some of the challenges to working on a program like that. But we wouldn't rule it out going forward.
Thank you.
Council members, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Ms. Hunt, I just wanted to thank you for giving us that slide about the operators and dispatchers and where we're at in terms of the progress there. I think that's really, really amazing that we're at, I think it was 97%, and we only have 2 more operators to become dispatchers. Kudos to you and your staff. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. It's been a very worthwhile project, and we have moved about 19 operators to the dispatcher position and completed their full cross training. And many of them have said that if they'd known it was that much fun, they would have done it sooner. So it's very gratifying. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is the Office of the City Attorney, and this is the Criminal Division, and Mary Ellen Hang.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Mary Ellen Hang. I'm the criminal deputy. I don't have a PowerPoint, but they're passing out my one handout for you. I'm just going to go through and cover a couple of the things that I think highlight the good work that we're doing in the criminal division. The first is surrounding our diversion programs. In basically the beginning of December of last year, we onboarded our new employee, Stephanie Enerson, as our diversion coordinator. So she's been with us about 7 months, 8 months. We asked for that position. We converted an old position to create this new position because we wanted to have a centralized way to screen and promote our diversion programs, restorative justice, shoplifting, diversion, our new obstructing legal process interact program, and our driving diversion, things like that. So Stephanie has been tasked with this, and the goal was to increase diversion opportunities and reach out to those that are eligible for them and create some uniform screening measures so we're being equitable and making sure we're reaching everyone. In 2015, the whole year, other than driving diversion, to all the other programs, we referred a total of 407 people for the whole 12 months. So far in the first half of 2016, we've referred 312 people. So I think the program is really showing that it is working. Stephanie is not only making sure we're referring people from court, but she's reaching out pre-court and trying to get people into those programs so they don't even have to come to court. And so I think that's been a really great addition to our staff. In January, we started our new obstruct diversion process called Interact. Deputy Chief Arredondo has been participating with MPD. We've had 33 referrals to that program, and we've asked the participants to fill out a survey. And the feedback we've gotten from the participants has been very positive. Nothing really negative, some neutral, but it's been very interesting to read their feedback and how they perceive the interaction. So I think that program's off to a great start. We're going to continue to monitor it, and we hope that maybe in 2017 expand it to other law enforcement agencies like Metro Transit, State Patrol, U of M. The other thing I want to highlight, second thing, is our domestic violence hotspots pilot that we started in 2015. In 2015, we started that in the north side, and that was where we had an MPD officer and a family therapist go out to a home where a 911 call was initiated that was coded as a domestic, but there was no police report ever written for that 911 call. And part of the goal was to determine was that appropriate that there was no report. And I believe the findings found that in most cases, yes, that was appropriate. The second piece was to try then to talk to the people in that home and make sure they knew what services were available and get them the support that they need as a family. And so that pilot was so successful on the north side that in 2016, we've started that in the south side of Minneapolis. So that is continuing to go very well. The third thing I want to highlight is, just because we often highlight the big cases, domestics and that, but I want to kind of give a shout out to the rest of my office and just some general trial things that we do well. We really want to focus on being aggressive prosecutors for the crimes that matter. And we've managed to maintain a 68% conviction rate on our domestic violence cases, 93% conviction rate on our gross misdemeanor weapons, and a 98% conviction rate on DWIs. And I think that just shows how well we're working with law enforcement, with the DV protocol and all the changes to the DUI laws, and just the real skills that our prosecutors have. And the final thing, and this is related to the handout, is just highlight our work again with chronic offenders, another very important area for us. Through budget assistance, we've been able to fund three probation officers who are tasked to work solely with offenders that are on our downtown 100 and our citywide 200. And that model of basically putting them on active supervision with a probation officer that will work with them and really assess what their needs are, we have managed to really reduce the recidivism among these offenders quite a bit. The downtown 100 reduced recidivism in 2015 by 67%. And last year was the first, we started the citywide top 200 probation officer in late 2014, I believe. And so the first year we didn't have great numbers because it was just rolling. But last year we had our first real impact. We reduced recidivism by 47%. And I think that's really commendable. And if you look at the handouts, it goes through each of the programs and you can kind of see for the citywide top 200, we've had, without that probation officer, we've had recidivism reduction as low as 29%. So 47% is a real increase. And the second handout goes through the downtown 100 and it looks at the offenders. Every year that list changes, and it's looked at those participants that were on there in 2010. They've not only reduced recidivism for the year they were on the program working with Ron Cunningham, but they've continued to reduce their recidivism in the prior years. And so I think it's working, taking the approach of really looking at what are the underlying issues and addressing those so that they're not out committing the crimes. As far as what we're going to be doing in the second half, a couple of highlights. We've just initiated our charging team, and they are going to really be focusing on increasing the efficiency and the equity in our charging. And they're also going to be providing feedback to officers when we find cases that are not sufficient to go forward in court. So we're hoping to see some real good results from that program. Another part of our diversion program is we're working with Hennepin County Justice Integration Project to do a technology project to create what we're calling kind of a holding tank for citations, so that for offenders that we're going to refer to diversion, that we can put these citations in this holding tank, have a chance to screen them, and if they're diversion eligible and accept it, we can dismiss that citation without creating a subsequent court record. So it will reduce the need for having expungements and the collateral consequences if the person is successful in our diversion program. So we hope to have that technology project completed by the end of the year, and I think that's going to prove to be a very good thing for the system as a whole. We're working with our burn grant that we got. It's a planning grant at Little Earth. Little Earth is one of our biggest hot spots for violence, and so we're trying to engage the community there and look at what's going on there and come up with an action plan to address those issues and lend support to the community at Little Earth. We're continuing to participate in the adult detention initiative, looking at our jail population and making sure the right people are in the jail for the right reasons. We're doing a lot of good work with our justice partners in that. And then finally, we just started with the body cams this week, and it's going to be, a real learning experience for our prosecutors to adapt to having body cam videos in every case, and a resource allocation issue for us. But we're just starting to roll that out with MPD, and that'll just be an ongoing process for us for the rest of the year.
And Ms. Hang, you talked about the body cams. I mean, it was rolled out just this past week, right?
Yes.
Okay. What was the date on that?
I believe I'm not sure if they started right after the 4th, but I know that they were wearing them over the weekend because I was charging on Monday because we were a little short-staffed, and I had a couple of cases that were in custody that were obstructs, and I was able to log on and watch the videos from the officers' body cams before I made my charging decision. So they were certainly wearing them this past weekend.
Okay. And, when you were talking about your charging team, you said two words that I guess were noticeable. One of them specifically, one was efficiency and the other was equity. And are you meaning equity in the legal sense or equity in the, I guess, proverbial, everyone uses the word in equity sense? I mean, just thought I'd ask.
Sure, Mr. Chair. I think that's a good question. I guess what I mean, I think it's both. I think that we want to make sure that, I think by having two attorneys do the charging, with a lot of cases, I mean, it's not a cookie cutter approach to prosecuting, and there's always a chance, like I say, you could give the same report to 10 different prosecutors and get 10 different opinions, and we try to, make those differences smaller with guidelines on charging and that, but I think it will provide some more consistency so that the same, they'll be charging all the time, and so they will have their philosophy of, along with our guidelines of what should be charged. So I hope that we won't see inconsistencies. I don't know that we are now, but I think it will really help with that we're making sure everybody's case is being looked at in the same way, and that we're charging. And I think there is some equity in that will be able to have the time to really look at the whole picture. Sometimes the way we were doing it now, our attorneys were doing charging as another one of their many, many assignments, and they don't always have the time to maybe do as thorough a research of looking at criminal history and that and deciding, is this something that we should charge, looking at, they just pled to this or that, and we hope to build that in. And then I think it's going to tie in with our diversion program nicely, because as they look for cases to charge, especially if they haven't charged it, they can take it to our diversion coordinator and say, hey, I was going to charge this kid with minor consuming. Do you want to reach out pre-charge and offer him diversion because he would be eligible, because I can see his record. So I think we'll create some efficiencies and equities, and really try to make sure that the cases that need to be charged are the ones we're charging.
Councilmember Gordon?
Well, that's very interesting, and I appreciate getting to know more about the details about how it works, and it just made me start to think about prosecutorial discretion, the history of the criminal justice system, and how we've focused a lot of attention recently on police interactions and implicit bias training. And I'm wondering if the attorney's office is looking at implicit bias training, or looking at how to kind of embed that or help people be more conscious of unconscious decision making that's involved when you're just trying to do your job and you're moving quickly and you might not realize it.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Gordon. Yes, as a matter of fact, at our management team meeting, City Attorney Susan Siegel mentioned that she is exploring, she's trying to reach out and find some trainers. She's very, very interested in bringing that training to our prosecutorial staff, and I think the office as a whole, but especially the criminal division. So that is something we're looking into, trying to find a trainer that would be a good fit for the subject matter, because we are aware, that there's a lot of training and opportunities to look at around implicit bias for prosecutors as well as law enforcement. So yes, that's something we hope to maybe get in 2016 if we can find the right trainer, but we'll keep working on it for sure for 2017.
Excellent. And it's probably not just limited to officers and prosecutors. We could probably
Everyone.
have a lot more implicit bias training.
Yes.
All over. Thank you.
Council President Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Hing, what would be a gross misdemeanor gun crime that you prosecute?
Council President Johnson, Mr. Chair, carrying a pistol without a permit.
Is that a gross misdemeanor?
That is a gross
Okay,
misdemeanor.
okay.
It is actually a gross misdemeanor offense to carry a BB gun in public. That is one that a lot of people don't know, because you can walk into a Target or a Walmart and buy a BB gun. And I think people think because you can go buy one in a big lot store, you can, walk down the street with it. You cannot. That is a gross misdemeanor. And then depending on certain criminal history, you may be deemed ineligible to carry a gun. And there are, most of the time we hear that crime for a felon in possession, an eligible person, but there are certain disqualifiers that will create a gross misdemeanor offense for an eligible person. Negligent storage of your weapon. If you have your guns lying around your home and you have young children that could easily access them, that can be a gross misdemeanor. So we have a variety of offenses that we prosecute as they're referred to us.
Okay. There was another thing I was going to ask you. Well, when you're talking about charging and you're able to access the video from the body cams, I know, your office has a quick turnaround for cases to be heard. Does the defendant have the same opportunity then to look at the body cam at that video at that time? Or my thought is, does that ability to have that look, is that going to impact timelines?
Council President Johnson, Mr. Chair, we're hoping not. We are in process of really finalizing our office protocols. And right now what we're thinking of doing is for certain offenses, such as an obstruct with force, where there's some sort of resistance, as much as possible, we want our attorneys to look at the body cam video before charging, because hopefully it will show a lot more than not more what's in the police report, but give a better picture of, it's nice to see a video of what happened than trying to read it and visualize. For our in custody charging, that may not always be possible, because we would have to make a decision of, do we want to charge this before the time is up and then the person would be released, or we want to try to charge it because we feel it's important that the person be held. So we'll make those on a case-by-case basis. But for our out-of-custody cases, things like obstructing, assaults, if the assault could have been caught on video, we're going to ask our attorneys, especially because it's our charging attorneys, to take the time to view those videos before they make the charging decision. And other cases, it'll be discretionary, because some misdemeanors, you probably don't need to see a video to make a charging decision. But I think it'll be a developing process and policy for us. And then for defendants, I believe the subject matter at any time, if I got arrested, even if I wasn't charged, I believe I'm entitled to see that video because I'm the subject of that video. And then we will have to disclose that video as part of our discovery process to either the pro se defendant or their attorney, public defender, or private. And so they will have access to all the videos that we have through evidence.com, and they'll be able to go over that with their attorneys before they make a decision on whether or not to resolve the case or set it for trial.
Thank you.
Councilmember Quincy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up in that vein, you say you haven't established a protocol at this point. It's kind of evolving, I'm sure. Is it very different from what we do with dash cam videos?
Councilmember Quincy, Council President, yes, it's going to be different, because with dash cam videos, we don't usually obtain those until we know the case is not going to settle. Sometimes we'll get them before the pretrial if the defense attorney specifically requests them, but if without a specific request, we don't usually get those. And we have to get those, I think right now. So I think we finally got access where we can pull them off our own programming, but we can access the body cam videos right from our desktop, and we don't have to go through any requests through MPD or anything. We've got our own access. And so it's going to be a little different. We have the ability to look at them as early as we want. It's going to really come down to a resource issue for us as to, if an attorney has 25 pretrials, I mean, the videos are live in time, and do they have time in their prep? How many videos can they watch? And so I think that's why it's kind of an evolving process. And we're going to try to put in place some places where we really strongly encourage them to view them. But I think in some ways it's going to end up being the same, as that we may not watch them in all cases until the case is going to be set for trial. Other than a few categories where we think it's going to be really, really helpful in settling at the pretrial to really everybody, like the obstructs are a great example. I think everybody having watched the videos hopefully will result in some of those cases settling without going to trial. Right now, that's one of the cases that we try the most because they're so contentious, and hopefully everybody having access to the videos, we might be able to resolve those more quickly.
Thank you. Very helpful. Final question. I know we just started a rollout of the body cameras. Do you know which precincts are up first?
First precinct just started,
downtown.
and then
Four
is
is
going
next.
next. Yes, and they're going every couple of weeks. So, and we're doing a training with our staff on Friday at our staff meeting. We've got everybody access, and so we'll start, we're already starting to get requests for them for discovery, and we're incorporating that slowly. So I think by the time all the precincts have them, we'll hopefully have our process all finalized. And but since it's so new to us, I think it's really going to be kind of one that we set a policy and process, and then we tweak it as we go to see what realistically our staff can manage.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
Ms. Heng, quick question about this. You had mentioned that, carrying a BB gun is a gross misdemeanor. And, I'm wondering, for some obscure laws in which, let's say, our police officers just don't remember these things. And so sometimes, it's not in the reports or they just, just say, look, no big deal, whatever, BB gun and all that stuff. Does your office or do other, entities do these sorts of refreshers for our police officers so that, that sort of obscure law is a part of their repertoire as well?
Yes, Council President, Mr. Chair, sorry. Yes, we use our community attorneys, and we actually recently did a training on some of the gun laws because we were finding we have a team of 3 attorneys that charge and prosecute these cases. And one of the nice things about concentrating that is they are able to see issues because they see the same cases. So we found a few issues. One was we were finding that a lot of officers were citing people with BB guns as under the ordinance for carrying a replica gun. And that's not necessarily a bad decision. And what we've told them is it's your discretion. I think it fits, but it's also a potential gross. And depending on the facts, you remember that you have that tool, but that's a much more serious charge. So we educated them that, in fact, it is a gross misdemeanor, and you could certainly free to use your discretion to charge other. The other area that we needed some training on was when they find an intoxicated person who has a permit to carry and is actually carrying their weapon. It is a crime to be intoxicated, but the law requires not, especially we were finding these often in DUI arrests. They'll arrest someone for DUI and the person will have a gun on them. And the law requires an implied consent to be read for the DUI part, but there's also a separate firearms implied consent that has to be read, or we cannot prosecute for that crime. And so we've done through our community attorneys some roll call trainings and other things to educate them on and update them. We've had some cases come down from the Court of Appeals that have affected. We had one that just came down that we've just found regarding constructive possession, and I sent that to Deputy Chief Glampy to make sure that the weapons unit is aware of that, because that's a big type of case that we get, 4 people in a car and who does the gun belong to. And the Court of Appeals made a really nice decision of some of the factors we have to consider and prove in those cases. So we try to have that open dialogue with the police as much as we can.
Thank you. All right, council members, any other questions? Councilman? Okay. All right, well, thank you so much. All right, and our last presentation is from the Office of Emergency Management, and Danielle Williams, please take us to the very end. Thank you so much for being here.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me. My name is Danielle Williams, and I am the Finance Section Chief for the Office of Emergency Management. I'd like to introduce Mayana Palmer, our step-up intern who is here to observe the committee meeting today. So there are a lot of slides, but don't worry, I will be brief. I'm going to go over briefly our mission, vision, strategy, operations, budget, and personnel, and our mid-year recap here. So I'm here today to brief you on our midterm progress. Director Lane regrets that he cannot be here today. He is in a pre-existing training engagement, and he requests that if you have any questions, to please directly contact him following this presentation. So just to go over our vision really quick to set the stage, the Office of Emergency Management promotes safe, resilient communities with the capability to cope with hazards and disasters, a resilient city government enterprise serving a resilient Minneapolis community. Our mission statement's there if you'd like to read it, but I'm going to pass over to the 4 major mission areas that we work in. In emergency management, we really work in the prevention, mitigation, response, and recovery mission areas. And in order to implement those 4 mission areas, we're building defined objective capabilities through the National Fire Protection Agency 1600 standards. The National Fire Protection Agency's 1600 standards is a national best practice, and we are working towards being accreditable by the end of 2018. So our annual work plan and how we set our goals and objectives is centered around those capabilities as defined as a national best practice. Our annual work plan is developed annually, reviewed by the city coordinator, and that's the means of implementing our capabilities. Our current work plan includes over 25 projects in the sections of planning, logistics, finance, and administration sections, in addition to our ongoing operations. All of our projects are currently on track for completion this year. The only exception is that we did have a staff member leave in our logistics section, and we will be hiring to refill that position. Those projects are currently on hold until we are able to replace that staff member. This is long, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of our major projects we have working on right now. We have worked through our Rapid Needs Assessment team, who is the first deployed asset in a disaster, and that is in collaboration with Public Works and the Parks Department. We have trained, equipped, and exercised that team, including iPad technology, in order to register debris and incidents across the city in order to get a great common operating picture amongst police, fire, and emergency management. We are working on a public education and community preparedness plan that will include community outreach regarding risks and personal preparedness. We are planning for an integrated emergency management course, which is a mouthful, but it's a large-scale preparedness exercise that will be held in 2017, and it will help prepare operational capabilities for the Super Bowl. So it's in the Super Bowl planning process. We are working on an enterprise continuity effort that should be launched later this year in order to bring our departments to a consistent approach to continuity planning. Our emergency operations plan has undergone a review, and it should be presented to the council in the near future for approval. We are working on a comprehensive disaster recovery framework for our community and how to best recover with our partners in a disaster. We do continued grant management, and we are working with interjurisdictional emergency preparedness for the Super Bowl. This is in direct collaboration and support of the Minneapolis Police Department's efforts, and we have formed our committee team for that and have an approved mission and planning schedule in order to make sure that we are fully prepared for the 2018 Super Bowl. Briefly, we have conducted 2 exercises so far this year, and we have had over 5,840 contact hours in training. A lot of these courses are also in support and ramp up to the Super Bowl. Our budget is on track. We just are working through the 2014 Urban Area Security Initiative grant closeout. So we completed that and successfully funded police, fire, health, public parks, and Super Bowl initiatives with that funding. And we've currently engaged in projects that range from helping 911 with some of their upgrades to MPD equipment and training, and also in support of the Super Bowl. So we will continue to monitor and work with awardees through those programs. And we'll be engaging with the budget discussion with the mayor's office tomorrow on our 2017 budget. We are currently at 5.5 employees. As I said, we lost our logistics section chief, so we'll be rehiring that position, and we will be hiring an operations section chief, bringing our full-time staff up to 7.5. We're not asking for additional resources. This is within the budget that we have. And in conclusion, we're on track for all of our projects this year, and we are in alignment with our annual work plan. We will be building our staff, but we aren't asking for anything additional. We're just trying to bring it back to kind of where it came from. And this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, please, I am.
Thank you. Council members, any questions? All right, seeing none. Oh, Councilmember Gordon?
Well, I just had a quick question about the training and the participants and exercises. I know that we also have a public health emergency preparedness team and effort that's involved. Do you train with them, and are they included in your numbers? Or who are the 86 people?
Councilmember Gordon, Council Chair. It's a collaborative effort. So the health department has some of their own requirements that come down from the CDC. So some of their exercise and training is very specific to the CDC requirements that are requested of them annually. We do train health department members. A lot of our participants in this training have been police and fire from within Minneapolis. However, when we arrange these trainings, whether they're free to the National Training Consortium and we're just bringing them in through the state, or if we're paying for them, we do open them up to our partners. So we make sure our need is filled first. However, if we have any available seats, we open that up to St. Paul and as far wide as the state for county officers. Emergency management, fire, and police are the primary recipients of this training. But we do work collaboratively, primarily with our Urban Area Security Initiative, the 10 surrounding metro counties. So we open those seats up to make sure that we can accomplish the force multiplier of training as best we can.
And because it's said for the exercises, there were 86 participants, but then for the actual training, there's 449. So that's a lot of people.
Councilmember Gordon, Council Chair, the two exercises that we held were directly around the rapid needs assessment team. So we held a drill. First we held a workshop for the rapid needs assessment team members, and then we held a full-scale drill for the rapid needs assessment members, which put them on the ground using that iPad technology. So that was a very specific focus for that exercise, which was getting them comfortable with the iPad technology, making sure that that whole system works, the plan, testing that plan, and making sure we could implement it. The training is anything from Incident Command 300, Incident Command 400. There's a lot of those where we're trying to get our police officers through what the basics of the National Incident Command System is, which is, the federal response initiative, before the Super Bowl. So our class list is various. There's Emergency Operations Center, Incident Command interface. We've done planning section chief training. So it's at the police and boots on the ground incident command level, and it's also at the emergency management level. So the variety of participants is kind of broad in those.
Okay.
They're not necessarily just supporting that exercise.
Sure.
So
Thank you very much.
Council members, any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
thank you for the opportunity.
All right. And, with that, we will just receive and file all the reports, and we will have police come in at another time to do their report. So, council members, all those in favor of the receiving and filing of these reports, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. With that, we have completed our business, and we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much.